If you're in the military or you're a federal employee and you haven't touched your TSP, you're probably losing thousands of dollars a year and don't even know it. And it's not because of the market, it's because you're not selecting the right plan and the right fund for you. This is TSP 101. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what the TSP is, what the different funds that are offered are, the pros and cons of each, and the most common questions I get asked when it comes to the TSP and investing. Quick ask, if you're new here, my channel breaks down military pay, money management, investing, TSP, VA, transitioning out, and a whole litany of different tax breaks and things like that specific for active duty veterans and their families. If you like the content, please go ahead and subscribe. I'm putting out more every single week. If you could go ahead and like the video, I would appreciate it. And please comment if you have questions or different opinions than mine that you want to share with others. The TSP, otherwise known as the Thrift Savings Plan, is the federal government's 401k. It's a retirement account for military and federal employees run by an independent agency, not a private company like a Fidelity or a Vanguard. If you're under the blended retirement system, the federal government automatically puts 1% in if you haven't set your settings for the TSP contribution, and they also match up dollar to dollar up to 5% of what you're putting in, so it's a pretty strong 401k match. And frankly, that's free money. You should at least be putting in 5% so that the government matches that on a dollar amount. So inside the TSP, you will choose between traditional and Roth 401k options. And you can split between both. I'm just gonna go over the wavetops between the two here. I'll do a full episode on the pros and cons of each traditional and Roth and what I did while I was in and what I do now. So a traditional 401k, so this is pre-tax money. You will get taxed on this money when you withdraw it in retirement, and it lowers your taxable income today. A Roth account is post-tax money, so it's taxed income that you can put into this account and it grows tax-free over time. So once you retire, you can pull from this and you won't pay any taxes. It's one of the best accounts to start when you're young and let it grow over time. So rough rule of thumb, if you expect your tax rate to be higher later in life than it is now, the Roth 401k contribution makes the most sense. If you expect it to be lower later on in life, like you might be in a lower tax bracket in your 60s and 70s, traditional tends to win. Again, that's really it for today. I'll do a full breakdown in the coming weeks. So let's talk about the funds. This is the part that most people don't talk about. You're reading a basic description when you're trying to select, and it can get confusing. Starting with the G fund, this is a government securities fund. It's basically the safest one in the TSP. It can't lose value day to day. The pros are zero volatility. It's great for money you'll need soon. The cons are it's the lowest long-term growth by far. It won't keep pace with inflation, and it's going to lose real growth over decades. This is also the default fund. If you never log into your TSP and change it, this is the fund that it's going to be contributing to. And definitely the biggest trap in this whole video that you want to be aware of. The F fund. This tracks the broader US bond market. The pros are more stable than stocks. It'll earn more than the G fund over time. However, it can still lose value when interest rates rise. It's not risk-free, and growth is still modest for stocks. Next, we have the C fund. This tracks the S&P 500, and that is the largest 500 US companies. Pros are it has great historical long-term growth. It has broad US exposure, and it's very low cost. The cons are there's more volatility. You can expect drops in bad years of maybe 15 to 20%, and it's not for money you need soon. So again, 401k, you want to plan out that you will not be withdrawing this money from your TSP until decades and decades later. You want to avoid penalties for early withdrawals, and you want this money to grow. The best thing you can do is let your money compound over time. So when I was in, all of my money was at the C fund, and the stock market did very, very well, and my money grew a large amount in comparison with some of these other funds if I had invested it there. Next, we have the S fund. This is small and mid-cap US stocks. It's everything not already in the S&P 500. The pros here are its historical, strong growth potential. It adds diversification to your portfolio beyond large companies. Cons are it's more volatile than the C fund. Frankly, I never had the S fund here. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was 22 to 26 years old, and I knew I wasn't touching this money for a long time because it's in my 401k and you get hit with early penalties if you withdraw before retirement. And I wanted to grow my money as quickly as possible and take that risk. And the S fund didn't do that for me. And just for clarification, if you separate from federal service and whether that's retired or resigned, and you've attained the age of 55 or older, you can access the funds that are in your TSP completely penalty free. If you do it any earlier, there is a 10% penalty, so you want to avoid that as much as possible. Next, we have the I fund. This is international stocks in developed markets outside the US. The pros here is it diversifies you outside the US market, and the cons are historically it's lagged behind US funds and it adds currency risk. You can sprinkle, maybe 10% of your contributions to international stock. You can do, 70% to the C fund, which is the largest US companies and has the highest growth potential, but also more risk. And, maybe the last 20% there to an S fund or a F fund for bonds. Lastly, we have the L funds. So this is Lifecycle funds, L 2050, L 2060, and so on. Built around your target retirement year. They blend the 5 core funds and get more conservative as the dates approach. The pros here are you're fully hands off. It automatically rebalances. The cons are you've less control. It's a one size fits all glide path that may not match your personal risk tolerance. So if you want to set it and forget it, this fund is definitely up your alley. But if you want to have more control, then you can look at the other funds. All right, let's hit the questions that I get asked the most. First off, we have, which fund should I pick? Frankly, I can't give you an answer on that. It's completely different by person, by age, by where you live, where you expect to be in retirement. And yes, that's a long way away if you're in your late teens, early 20s, in your 30s. However, you have to start planning for this now. I was mostly allocated in the C fund. I wanted the money I was contributing to my Roth to be the highest growth potential. I knew there was risk involved, but I knew I wasn't selling for decades to, withdraw that money. So I wanted it to be in the highest potential for growth. If you want to play it safer or mix it in, you can create different percentages. You can do half C fund, 20% S fund, 10% I fund. It's completely up to you. Generally with investing, the further away you are from needing the money, the more riskier you can be. When you're getting closer to that retirement age, that's when you want to be more conservative and cautious and maybe switch your investments to a G fund. Next question I get is, can I lose all my money I contribute in the TSP? No, even in the riskier ones that are more targeted for growth, like the C, the S, the I, the funds capture a giant bucket of companies. You're not investing in a single company where if they go bankrupt, you're completely out of money. You're buying a portfolio of tens, usually hundreds of different companies where the ones that do really well will carry the portfolio and the ones that do very poorly can somewhat hurt it, but they're balanced because you have winners, losers in the mid-tier companies all in this one fund. Next question I get is, can I change my fund selections? Absolutely. I changed mine. I went from 100% in C fund, dropped it to 70%, and then 30% in the international fund. You can completely change it with where you are in life. Like I said, as you get older, closer to retirement, you probably want to allocate towards the G fund or the F fund, where if you're in your late teens or your 20s and 30s, you can be more aggressive with the C fund or the S fund or the I fund. Is there a penalty if you withdraw before the retirement age? Yes, there's a 10% penalty, so it's definitely to your benefit if you leave your money in there and let it grow over time and compound. And then once you reach the age of 55 and you've left federal service, you can start withdrawing that money. Quick recap, know all the differences between the 6 funds. Understand that the G fund is default and you probably want to change that once you get into your TSP account, and know that you can change your allocation at any time. If this has helped you understand your TSP a little bit better, please go ahead and subscribe. Drop a like, leave a comment if you have questions or things you want to share, and we'll get into traditional versus Roth accounts in the next video. Thanks so much.